As we said before, if in fact we sight the moon tonight, then Eid is tomorrow. Otherwise, the next day, which means this show may have 1 or 2 days maximum for the Ashraf Garda show to be on Salam Media. Then we have a nice chill period. Okay. Further thoughts and comments on my conversation around what's going on in Palestine, Israel. WhatsApp voice notes are welcome. 061 7660355. Text or voice notes, by the way. There's a whole series of them, and we'll play them in a few minutes' time. But one of the things that I speak strongly about is to build a champion nation, right? And one of the key factors, like what are the ingredients that are needed to build a champion nation? There's a sense that we need to be far more productive, or productivity as part of our national psyche. Well, it has to be developed. Okay, so I thought on that basis, let's talk about this. It's very much an affirmation type of conversation I want to have with Professor Mthunzi Mdwaba. He does many things. He's a good friend of mine, but I'll also say that just to introduce him, he's a social entrepreneur. He's the president and the CEO of Tesoro IBC. He's a global strategic advisory and consultancy firm, that is. He's the chairman of Productivity SA, and that's why we're going to talk to him. He's part of the IOE, which is the International Organization of Employers, representing 159 members in 150 countries. He's the vice president and the ILO vice chairman. He's also part of SANA, the South African Norwegian Association. He's the chairman there. And then he's the SADC, that's SADC's tripartite and AU endorsed candidate for the ILO Director General position in 2020, which, if he is elected, he'd be the first African ever to be elected to that position in 101 years. And I certainly hope he gets that position. But for now, we'll talk productivity. Professor Mthunzi Mdwaba with me. Prof. Mthunzi, good chatting to you. Hi.
Hello, Ashraf. Good morning. Always lovely to see you. And may I immediately say to you and all the listeners, may you have an excellent Eid Mubarak. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've been fasting, as you know, for the last 29 days or so. So we're almost over, and we get back to a normality.
Rather you than me.
Well, there you are. Anyway, now listen. Well, I suppose fasting is a form of being productive because it gets a certain aspect of your life in shape. Productivity is not about just turning business, right? And I thought I want to speak to you about that aspect of productivity, because it's close to where I stand from Champion South Africa, and you are the chairperson amongst your many other positions of Productivity SA. So firstly, here's the question to you: when we talk about being a productive South African, what's your understanding by that?
Well, Ashraf, I try and simplify messaging as much as possible, and I always like these days to quote a quotation which I know Lao Tzu and Bruce Lee and many other people used, that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Because one of the problems with productivity is that we tend to overcomplicate it and people don't understand what we're talking about. And when we talk about productivity, we're talking about doing better every day. We're talking about improvement every day. We're talking about doing things differently, better today than we did yesterday, even better tomorrow. It's even properly encapsulated in the Kaizen principle by the Japanese, who talk about continuous improvement. And this is really what we want. But by being more productive as a person and being more productive as a nation, what we then do is we also enhance the possibility of economic improvement and economic enhancement, which in turn provides us with the jobs.
All right. So are we as a country, is South Africa a productive nation?
No.
Why not? Explain.
Well, I guess maybe let me be kind on you and I. There are some of us who are productive. I think what we are doing
Thank you.
is productive. I think fasting, as you said, is productive. Rest is an important part of being productive. But when you look at where we stand in the world and you look at the indices in the world in terms of our productivity levels, South Africa is going down year on year for the last 10, 11, 12 years, even more. And if you use the Global Competitiveness Index as a guide, then you would be aware that South Africa, about 11 years ago, we were number 44 out of 63 countries that are measured. 44 out of 63 countries that are measured about 11 years ago. Today, we are sitting at number 59 out of 63 countries. We were 56 the year before. We exchanged positions with Brazil now. Brazil is 56 and we are 59. Self shows you. And if you look at also the kind of data that comes through, is that for us to be productive, there's a lot of things we need to do. But fortunately, all the indices actually tell us what to do. We just don't listen so well. Yes.
So what are when you say indices tell us what to do, we don't listen. I mean, who's in the position to get South Africans to be switched on regarding productivity? Is it Productivity SA? Is it the organization that you chair? Is it the president of the country? Is it the political parties? Is it whatever? Is it business? Who?
Well, Ashraf, it's a slightly complex and yet simple issue. All of us need to contribute to the productivity of the country. Business, trade unions in terms of labor, civil society, government. But the one thing we can never run away from is that the enabling environment is always created by government. So for us to be a productive nation, we do need our leaders or the people at the top, because you know I have a sensitivity with calling people leaders unless I'm sure they are leaders, but the people at the top need to actually exemplify this by leading from the front. For example, we've asked for October month to be declared by the cabinet of this country as a productivity month. We've always observed October as productivity month. We always have the productivity awards in October, but we are saying for it to be understood not to be the responsibility only of the Department of Employment and Labor, and I'll come back to the employment part of the Department of Employment and Labor, because as you know, it was renamed about 2 years ago. It used to be the Department of Labor. For it to be taken beyond that, so that the whole government sees it as a government-wide responsibility, not that of the Department of Employment and Labor, we want Cabinet to say Productivity Month is in October. And we would like to see the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa, using a word that you like to use a lot in terms of your organization, being a champion of productivity, that he leads from the front, he shouts from the front, he gets us, all of us, into our marching lines from a productivity point of view. Now, for us as Productivity South Africa, our role is, in terms of the Employment Services Act, is to act in ways that contribute to the creation of employment, that contribute to the retaining of people in jobs, so that we stem the tide of retrenchments, from contributing to the entire productivity of the country and the competitiveness of the country. We're the only entity in the country that is mandated with this. Now, we've seen growth in the recognition of our role, but one of the biggest problems has been a denialistic kind of behavior by our own government, the very people who gave birth to us, the people who gave birth to Productivity SA. They appoint, for example, I was appointed by the minister to be the chair of Productivity SA, but I spent a number of years, about 4 years, trying to convince the Department of Employment and Labor what it is that I'm supposed to do, and yet they appointed me, which is a huge psychological problem for us as a board. My head. So now we're starting to get that recognition. We've got, I must tell you, the buy-in of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Employment and Labor, which has been in the last maybe 4 or 5 months. And the amazing thing for it to happen is also the fact that the current chairperson, Lindelwa Dunjwa, had the wisdom to say, sorry, I don't understand what it is you guys do. Now, all the other previous portfolio committees never had this humility to own up, to say, sorry, we don't understand, which I always suspected was the situation, because even our language our languaging ourselves was a bit complicated. To my people, tone it down, you know, don't complicate this productivity thing and talk about inputs and outputs, talk about simple. She eventually said, I don't understand. And everybody said, what? She said, no, I don't understand. Can they come and explain it to us? Best thing that ever happened, because it gave us an opportunity to go and simplify the messaging, explain, and after that, she could not stop in going, wow. She kept on applauding and amazing thing. So now,
so let me ask you this. Then, I mean, just for the benefit of the listeners as well, if they also are battling with with the complexities of names and words, and we talk about like, so what does productivity SA do? So perhaps give it to us in 2 lines. Then what does productivity SA do, so that we can understand it too?
In 2 lines. Okay, that's interesting. So productivity SA intervenes in what we call multi-factor productivity, which means a holistic productivity approach that is not limited to labor productivity or capital productivity. It's holistic. It involves everything that we must leverage in terms of the resourcing optimally of the organization. And it's our job, it's our role to intervene. And it's our role, particularly now with the COVID, to even ensure the recovery of the economy as well. Workplace collaboration is our thing.
Okay, you made the point that October is Productivity Month, and you would want the president of the country to be shouting from the rooftops about the need to upscale productivity in our mindsets, right? Do I take it from your initial point that in fact it's not being done? So you have Productivity Month, but you don't have the president, and you don't have parliament, and you don't have cabinet completely embracing Productivity Month in the same way that we can define Easter or the December holidays as very distinct. We're nowhere near that, right?
No, we're not. We're nowhere near that. We've made some progress. So I would say if 5 years ago we were looking at a measurement of 0 to 10, I would have said 5 years ago it was a 1. If you ask me about 2 years ago, I would say it was a 3. If you ask me about currently, I would say it's about a 4.5, 5. And we've done everything we can as an entity to bring awareness, to have communication, to have advocacy, to have promotional stuff. But it is very siloed. Nobody recognizes it. And for me, I want to stress this because it's also important. You must remember that the biggest suffering in the economy is always SMEs, right? It's always the small players, the small, medium enterprises. And it's also the people in the informal sector, which in South Africa, this is always about 60 to 70% of the economy as we know it. So we tend to focus on the formal economy. We tend to focus on the big companies in the JSE.
Yeah.
And those are a very small part of the South African economy. And we don't have anything that brings us together that is able to assist these SMMEs and people in the informal sector to be able to do that. And I think it's also important, Ashraf, to understand. Yes, when it's Easter, for example, you talk about Easter. Easter, we all celebrate. We all celebrate the fasting that you are doing now.
Yeah.
Everybody in the community does it. But it doesn't mean that you only start with a fast. You don't start with a fast. You start by preparing people to be believers, to have faith, to have a set of values, mores of the society.
Yeah. Good point.
To pray every day. You don't just go and say, no, we're now going to fast. No, you pray
Absolutely.
every day.
So to wrap up, then we've got a minute to go. I mean, if I then internalize or personalize it, okay, one of the conversations you and I have had is like, so how do we ensure that productivity becomes part of our individual DNA and therefore the DNA of our country, right?
Yes.
So individuals, now we've been speaking about businesses and entities, but an individual listening to you and I talk now, how do they internalize what you've just said so that they understand they need to be in this continuous improvement phase and therefore become productive South Africans?
I think how they internalize it is the statement I made at the beginning. We always need to strive to do things today better than we did yesterday and even better tomorrow. As we talk about the future of work, as we talk about technology and all the things that need to change going into the future, we need to embrace these and not just sit back. Change is going to happen whether we like it or not, but we need to make it positive change. We need to be constructive. And as I always say, we need everyone. One single step every day, one brick at a day will take us to the promised land. So all of us need to do what we do as agents to be catalytic so that we have a collective growth in the things we do. All of us must play our role as you and I do. And I think we need to try and make sure that this is a message that we send to everybody, Ashraf.
And if we get that right, then we get one step closer to my purpose of turning South Africa into a champion nation. So, Mthunzi, appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And hopefully post-Ramadan, we can have a cup of coffee together if you're still in South Africa and not in Geneva, right?
Thank
Absolutely.
You, Ashraf. Thank you
Professor
very much.
Mthunzi Mdwaba, amongst his many titles, belonging part of the ILO and the IOE, and potentially the Director General of the IOE one day. It may well happen, but in this case here, the chairperson of Productivity SA. And yeah, how do we get on side with turning productivity as part of our national psyche? Maybe Penny Appeal, in a way, does just that.